Thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Rebound Colorado. I'm Denver 7 education reporter Nicole Brady. March 13th, 2020. If you're a parent, you know that date. If you're a teacher, you know it. It was the last day of normal school for most kids in our state. Over the last year, I have covered the huge challenges and the changes we've seen in education. As a mom of 2 kids, I've been personally impacted by this. I've also spent the year talking to teachers, administrators, students, and other parents, and I know some of the challenges they've faced. But I want to first look back on a year and remember when remote learning was an entirely new term to us. We've come a long way since then, and now I think a big question is whether remote learning is here to stay in some form or if school will ever be normal again. Every district I've spoken to is planning to be fully in person for the fall, but undoubtedly kids will still be required to wear masks and follow other health and safety protocols for a while because we know that it's going to take some time before kids are vaccinated. Remote learning may not even go away even post-pandemic. It could be an option for snow days perhaps, or if a student is out sick. And it's something I've found a lot of districts, including Jeffco, Boulder, and Douglas County schools, are planning to offer as an alternative.
Yes, we have heard from some families, whether it be for continuing health concerns or just that it meets the learning needs or lifestyle of their family, that their students have thrived in this environment and are interested in continuing to pursue remote education.
Now, of course, the big thing with remote learning is you must have internet access, and that was a big problem when schools initially went remote last March. A state education department assessment found over 65,000 Colorado students lacked internet access at home back last spring. Now, that has improved since then. During the special session in December, state lawmakers passed an internet connectivity bill which provided grants to school districts to expand broadband access. Federal money was also directed at broadband support, and even wireless companies like T-Mobile stepped in with hotspots, providing those for free to low-income families. So internet has improved. Still, it's just one of many inequities that were exposed this year that we're going to need to talk about for a long time ahead. Now, another thing I want to talk about is how this year impacted teachers. I can only imagine how stressful this year has been, and recently we reported a survey given by the Colorado Education Association found 40% of teachers were considering quitting after this year. And even before that survey, this was something I spoke to state lawmakers about.
I think our educators are exhausted. They didn't sign up for teaching online, in person, and their own kids simultaneously, and with very to little supports to help them achieve that. So if we ignore the situation that's happening with our educator workforce, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
We know teachers spent a lot of time this year advocating for their own safety from COVID, but I expect as we move forward, the conversation will turn to how schools can better support their teachers. Now, for students, a lot of what we're hearing right now is about learning loss, but I don't want that to be so negative. And I'm hearing a lot of different school districts and community organizations talking about how we can turn this into a positive, how we can use the summer perhaps to re-engage students and reestablish relationships and also to catch them up on some learning. We're going to be hearing a lot about accelerated learning next school year, not remediation. Another thing I'll be watching into the next school year is enrollment. Schools saw 30,000 fewer students this year. A lot of those students went to alternative programs or homeschool. So we'll see if that is a trend that continues into the future. Over the past year for schools in Colorado, the only constant has been change. As the coronavirus pandemic throttled Colorado in waves, schools were forced to adjust their learning plans to keep students and teachers safe. It was a disruption to education on every level, but it was also a disruption at home as families juggled oftentimes last-minute shifts to remote learning. How did parents make it work, and what do they hope the rebound looks like for education? I went straight to the source on this in a roundtable discussion with several Colorado parents.
These new words we learned this year have been fascinating to me. Synchronous and asynchronous learning. Last year when my kids went remote, I remember it was very little time with the teacher. And for understandable reasons, obviously things were just still being sorted out, but it was just a lot of homework all day. This year, has it felt like you were in a classroom with your kids, Bina?
A lot more, yes, this year. And partly that is just the learning curve. In the spring, we really didn't know what was happening. And I think that there were a lot of families that thought, oh, well, this is kind of time off. And, I would have kids who didn't join a meet, but would email me later and said, sorry, my mom's making me pancakes, which is, way more fun than doing a math lesson. So and I did have support from our district, luckily, and I've had to also be really creative in my lesson plans. And I am mostly a synchronous teacher. I think that I get a lot more engagement when I keep them with me most of the school day.
I'm sure, even as hard as it is, I think for the kids to focus on a computer sometimes, I bet you're doing a great job. Hey, I want to shout you out here. Amanda is commenting on our Facebook Live. Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. We do virtual learning, and it has been such a wonderful experience that lets us feel safe. So there's someone who's saying thank you to those teachers who have shifted to remote this year. Now, Nisha, I want to bring you in because I know you've been an advocate for getting the kids back in classrooms. And DPS, it's been a tough road. I know more so than some districts, they were a little slower to bring kids back. Give me a sense of the journey that you started at the beginning of the school year when it was clear that things were not going to be normal.
Yeah, so we started the school year. I think they decided to push the start date back to October, which I think everybody recognizes in hindsight, the cases were a lot lower in August. And I think the district has admitted that we probably should have gone back, in late August, early September. And then after fall break, all the kids went back. And then 3rd through 5th grade students got pulled back to remote learning after 6 or 7 days. I think they went back and they made the call to just have kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders in the building. And that's kind of when I got involved with the district. And I took issue with that. Just as a parent, I think it was, we were really, really patient and really wanted to see, everything being done safely and done correctly. And then, seeing the light come back in your children's faces and seeing their excitement of finally being in a classroom and then having that taken away, that's when I think people started to pay attention. I went out of my way to kind of start working with the school board and the teachers union and the district just to kind of see, what I could do. I think parents also are stakeholders and how we could help and how we could help with communication and get back to school in January, which was pretty successful as far as I'm concerned. And I think the district is finally doing all the right things to make sure, students need to be back and teachers need to be safe. So
I want to read a comment here that we have on the Facebook page from Sarah, who says, with virtual learning, keeping kids on task has been extremely difficult. They're in their own domain and want to do what they would normally do at home when the school day's over. As time has gone by, depression and motivation levels in general have been an issue, as well as no longer wanting to be social. So I actually want to hear from any of you. Nisha, you have advocated a lot in the schools about this issue. Of course, Bina, you have teenagers. So let's start with you, actually. Are teenagers really, do they have specific challenges right now, do you think, with this lack of in-person engagement?
I have 2 boys. I have a freshman and a senior, and my senior is just ready. He's ready to be done. So I think he's somewhat unique in the way that he feels. He's fine with it. He's gone through the motions, and he is definitely a glasses half full kind of kid. My freshman, though, on the other hand, he struggled a lot more with at the beginning of the year. He's hybrid now. He had a hard time staying motivated, and to be really honest with you, there were a couple times where I'd walk into his room and he's watching, past episodes of Friends instead of engaging in biology. So I've had to rein it in quite a bit.
Learning challenges aren't the only hardships for schools amid the pandemic. After the break, we talk with counselors from a Colorado school district about the social and emotional challenges students face. The school year hasn't only presented learning challenges either. Students and teachers are adjusting to social and emotional challenges. We've talked with counselors in the Thompson School District about what they've seen in their schools.
One of our biggest things that we're really talking about right now is that compassion fatigue, and what that looks like to always kind of be on and constantly empathizing for others, and what that does, that burnout level for educators and especially mental health staff. It's hard to be a caregiver or nurturer or educator or mental health provider anyway, right? We know that it takes a lot of energy to do that.
And for some students, that's they're not comfortable with that, and they don't want the class, the teacher, other students to kind of see in their personal space. And the flip side as well of whether it's work meetings or meetings with families and students of if I'm at home or if other adults are at home, it is definitely interesting to kind of switch to being like, and you're kind of in my home right now. So some students, definitely. I have spoken to about of just feeling anxiety of not wanting folks to see their home for whatever reason, or just feeling uncomfortable being on camera, feeling uncomfortable talking in the meetings, and would maybe prefer to type it in the chat.
I wish that we could bring people into our building to see the great things that are happening as well. This is the best place for kids to be. Teachers want their kids to be here in person. Then also understanding that, we are people and we have our own families, and we're trying to look out for the best interest of both our students and our families. And so, when we do have to go home and engage in remote learning and quarantine, it's not because we don't want to be here. It's not because we don't want kids in the classroom. It's because we want what's best for our entire community.
We should be really cautious not to categorize all kids as their mental health suffering, because what I find is that some students are flourishing during this time. Yes, we're going through a pandemic, but they're finding that remote learning is actually more beneficial to their learning style. They like the flexibility, the freedom. It gives them an opportunity to also do some outside responsibilities on a little bit more flex model. And so some students are adapting well. Again, it goes back to those protective factors. The students that have those protective factors in their lives are doing much better. It's those students that maybe already had the mental health pre-diagnosis that are struggling.
And so for these kiddos to come back in January after having been essentially engaging in remote learning since March of last school year and being able to come to an in-person setting, we were only about 3 months in to being in person or having had the in-person experience. And there was a lot of training, everything from how do I get from my classroom to the bathroom, to what do I do when I need help with my computer, to can I get up out of my seat whenever I need to? How do I get a new pencil? Just those little things that you just don't think about on a daily basis. How learning looks inside a school for a student that came from learning entirely at home and catching up after only being about 3 months behind in a remote learning setting.
It really hit me, like the mask wearing thing is just, this happened more than one time, but kids have it's so ingrained in them, like I need to wear my mask like all the time, all day. And if they forget it in the car, or they drop it in the snow and get it muddy, like it's like a traumatic experience for them, like to not have something covering their face, and then to like have to ask for one and advocate for that is just, I've seen multiple kids really, really struggle with just that one thing, and it really hit me like, oh my gosh, like this is something that this kid is feeling like real anxiety over, because they forgot their mask in their mom's car,
Because so much identity development occurs during middle school years, whether that's personal identity and a lot of like social identities, and so much of middle school is that social aspect of it. And a lot of that has either been taken away or has, changed to be very structured this year. And specific to middle school students, something that I'm interested in seeing is like how or what changes to the identity development really happen because of this. And of course, we might not know that for a while.
You can find more of that interview with Thompson School District counselors by hitting the back button on your remote and looking for the top stories section. Taking the rebound into his own hands. After the break, the Colorado student who created a new website aimed at helping students struggling through the pandemic.
There's help out there. You just have to reach out.
A high school student in Colorado Springs is helping his classmates rebound from the pandemic with a new website. It's called The Max Class, and it offers a wide variety of services to help students who have struggled academically during the pandemic. Mayo Davison from our sister station in Colorado Springs explains how it works and how it aims to break barriers.
There's help out there. You just have to reach out.
As the pandemic continues impacting education, a Discovery Canyon High School senior is stepping up to make sure all students have access to much needed resources.
During the pandemic, motivation has been a problem for a lot of students. And if our school that has so many resources is already doing so poorly with motivation from some of our students, it just seemed to me that there are so many students out there who have no resources.
Seeing the growing need, Kalyan Karamseti created the Max Class, which is composed of 2 parts.
Our resource repository, so that's where we have our examples, our IB database. We have tutoring that's completely free, and we also have paid tutoring for some of our subjects.
While some of their services cost a fee, he says, to help break the socioeconomic barriers brought on by the pandemic, those unable to pay will have access to everything they offer free of charge.
Companies who generally do these resources, they're also struggling.
Karamseti came up with the idea as part of the school's diploma program.
What Kalyan has done is taken a core piece of the diploma program here at Discovery Canyon campus, and he has created this project.
As a coordinator, she oversaw the project but let him take the lead. To help make it a success, Karamseti enlisted some of his close friends.
The essay editing is led by Elia Muncie, who leads our essay editing. I lead the tutoring.
Karamseti encourages anyone struggling during this time to reach out for help.
Unmute your microphone, talk to your teacher, and if you need that help, just come onto the site.
He says the website is not only for students in Discovery Canyon, but all students in the city.
As Colorado colleges work to rebound from their own pandemic losses, their role in our overall rebound may be more important than ever.
I think that COVID has really laid bare a lot of the inequities across our system, whether it's healthcare or whatever else. And if we're going to, get to a new normal and recover from COVID, the role that higher education plays in lifting people into a better world is so huge.
To continue our look at higher education and Colorado's rebound, I spoke with several Colorado colleges and universities to learn how they're addressing academics, the student experience, and equity. That full story is coming up on Denver 7 News tonight at 10. Thanks for watching. I'm Nicole Brady.